My beloved friends, listen closely, for today I bring to you a truth that carries the power to transform your life. There is a prayer, a simple yet powerful prayer that can bring an end to your hardship and open the door to blessings you have long been waiting for. This is not a prayer of empty words, but a prayer born from faith, from trust, from surrender to the Almighty who hears every cry of your heart. Hardship may surround you right now. You may be struggling with sickness, with financial burdens, with loneliness, or with disappointments that make your heart heavy. Perhaps you feel forgotten, abandoned, or overwhelmed by the storms of life. But I tell you this, there is no situation too dark, no chain too strong, and no mountain too high that prayer cannot move. Prayer is the bridge between your weakness and God's power, between your lack and His abundance, between your sorrow and His joy. When you pray, do not pray as if speaking into the air. Pray with the certainty that heaven is listening. Pray as though the answer is already being prepared for you. The moment faith rises in your heart, the atmosphere begins to shift. The forces of darkness that tried to keep you in bondage lose their grip. The angels of God are released to fight on your behalf. Doors that were closed suddenly begin to open. Where there was drought, rivers of blessing begin to flow. The prayer that ends hardship is not filled with doubt or fear. It is filled with thanksgiving. It says, Lord, even though I see lack, I know you are my provider. Even though I feel weak, I know you are my strength. Even though I walk through the valley, I know you are with me. This is the prayer of faith, the prayer that trusts God more than circumstances, the prayer that refuses to be moved by what the eyes see, but holds firmly to what the Spirit knows. There is a divine exchange that happens in prayer. You bring your burdens, and God gives you rest. You bring your tears, and He gives you joy. You bring your fears, and He fills you with peace. You bring your emptiness, and He pours out abundance. When you pray with faith, you align yourself with heaven's will, and blessings that were delayed begin to manifest in your life. Today, I urge you to pray as if your breakthrough depends on it, because it does. Cry out with sincerity, and do not let go until you feel the hand of God touch your situation. Say, Father, I believe you have the power to turn my mourning into dancing, my poverty into abundance, my sickness into health, my confusion into clarity. Speak it until every fiber of your being believes it. For when faith is released through prayer, miracles are born. Your hardship does not define you. It is only a season. And seasons change. The winter of your suffering will give way to the spring of your blessing. The night of your weeping will give way to the morning of your rejoicing. All it takes is that one prayer spoken in faith that shifts the atmosphere of your life forever. So rise up today. Do not remain in despair. Lift your voice to heaven with boldness. Speak the prayer that ends hardship and opens the door to blessings. For your God is faithful, your God is powerful, and your God is ready to pour out upon you more than you can ask, more than you can imagine, more than you can contain. The door to blessing is not far from you. It is here, it is now, it is waiting to be opened through your prayer of faith. Pray, believe, and receive. Your hardship is ending and your blessings are on the way. Prayer is not just words spoken into the silence. It is not simply a ritual or a tradition to calm the mind. Prayer is far greater, deeper, and more powerful than we often realize. Prayer is the bridge between human weakness and God's power, between our inability and His limitless ability. When you truly understand this, prayer ceases to be a routine act and becomes the lifeline that connects your fragile reality with the unstoppable strength of heaven. In life, We all come face to face with our weakness. There are moments when no amount of effort, planning, or intelligence can solve the problem before us. There are illnesses that medicine cannot cure, financial struggles that no strategy seems to fix, and emotional burdens that no friend can fully lift. These moments expose the limits of human strength. But it is in these very limits that prayer becomes essential. For prayer is not dependent on human strength. It draws from divine strength. When you step onto the bridge of prayer, you leave behind the shores of your own weakness and cross over into the land of God's power. Think of a child who holds a broken toy in his hands. He cannot fix it no matter how much he tries. But when he brings it to his father, the father knows what to do. The child doesn't need to understand the process. He only needs to trust that his father can restore what is broken. In the same way, when we bring our brokenness to God in prayer, we may not understand how He will do it, but we know He has the power to mend, restore, and transform. Prayer is the act of placing our weakness into the hands of one who is never weak. The beauty of this bridge is that it is always accessible. You don't need money to walk across it. You don't need a special qualification, a perfect record, or eloquent words. All you need is a willing heart and a measure of faith. The moment you pray sincerely, you step onto that bridge and you begin to move from the realm of the impossible into the realm of the possible. Your situation may not change instantly, but the connection has been made. The divine flow of strength, wisdom, and peace begins to move toward you. When you stand on your own strength, you live under constant pressure. You fear failure because you know how fragile you are. But when you walk across the bridge of prayer and lean on God's power, the burden shifts. You no longer carry the weight of the outcome on your shoulders. You trust the one who holds the universe in His hands. Suddenly, the impossible doesn't look so impossible. The mountain doesn't look so high. The storm doesn't seem so fierce. Why? Because you know you are not facing it alone. Prayer also changes perspective. On one side of the bridge, you see only your weakness and the problem that overwhelms you. But as you cross into God's presence, you begin to see from His perspective. Problems shrink in the light of His greatness. Fear melts in the warmth of His love. Anxiety is replaced with peace that surpasses understanding. That is the power of prayer. It doesn't just change circumstances, it changes you. It makes you stronger, braver, more hopeful, because you know the source of your strength is not yourself, but God. So never underestimate prayer. It is not wasted breath. It is not a last resort. It is the greatest privilege you have to walk daily on that bridge that takes you from weakness into divine strength. Every time you pray, you are connecting with the unlimited resources of heaven. And when heaven flows into your life, hardship loses its grip and blessings begin to manifest. When you pray, the most important ingredient is faith. Without faith, prayer becomes nothing more than empty words. With faith, prayer becomes the key that unlocks heaven's storehouse. To pray with faith means to approach God with certainty, with confidence, with the assurance that He not only hears your prayer, but is already preparing the answer. This is why prayer must be filled with belief, not doubt, with confidence, not hesitation. When you pray with faith, you are declaring to the universe that your trust lies not in what you see, but in the one who is unseen and all-powerful. So often people pray as though they are unsure if God will really act. They ask, but in their hearts they doubt. They say words, but in their minds they are filled with questions. Will God hear me? Does He care about my situation? Is my problem too small or too big for Him? Such prayers carry no power because they are rooted in uncertainty. But when you pray with faith, you silence those doubts. You come boldly declaring that your Father in heaven is faithful to his promises. Faith makes prayer alive. Faith gives prayer its wings. Faith-filled prayer is not based on feelings. Your emotions may tell you one thing, but faith rises above emotion. You may feel discouraged, yet faith says, God is still working. You may feel weak, yet faith declares, his strength is made perfect in my weakness. You may see no progress, yet faith insists, the answer is already on its way. To pray with faith means you no longer measure God's ability by your circumstances. Instead, you measure your circumstances by God's ability. When you believe that heaven is listening, your words change. You no longer beg or plead as if trying to convince God. Instead, you pray with gratitude, thanking him in advance for what he will do. Gratitude is the language of faith. It says, I know my Father has heard me, and I trust his timing. This kind of prayer moves mountains because it is built on absolute trust. Faith in prayer also means seeing beyond the visible. Your natural eyes may see a closed door, but the eyes of faith see a door about to open. Your natural eyes may see sickness, but the eyes of faith see healing. Your natural eyes may see lack, but the eyes of faith see provision. Prayer with faith is like planting a seed. You may not see the harvest immediately, but you are confident that beneath the soil growth has already begun. When you pray without doubt, the spiritual atmosphere shifts. The forces of fear and discouragement lose their grip on your heart. Peace replaces worry. Hope replaces despair. The unseen realm begins to respond to the authority of your faith. Heaven and earth align with your words because they are rooted in trust in God's promises. Remember, it is not the length of the prayer that matters, but the depth of faith within it. A few words spoken with true belief carry more power than 1,000 words spoken with doubt. This is why Scripture reminds us to ask, believing that we will receive. Faith turns prayer from wishful thinking into confident expectation. It transforms prayer from a desperate cry into a victorious declaration. When you pray with faith, you stand on solid ground, unshaken by delays, unmoved by obstacles, because you know that what you have asked in alignment with God's will is already being accomplished. So the next time you kneel to pray, remove every doubt from your heart. Speak as one who is heard. Declare as one who is certain. Thank as one who has already received. Pray with faith, not with fear. For faith-filled prayer not only touches heaven, it brings heaven's answer down into your life. A heart filled with thanksgiving is one of the greatest keys to unlocking the blessings of God. When you pray with gratitude, you invite heaven's abundance into your life in a way that nothing else can. Many people come to God with prayers full of requests, lists of needs, and cries of desperation. But when your prayer is clothed in thanksgiving, it carries a fragrance that touches the heart of God. Gratitude shifts your focus from what you lack to what you already have. And in doing so, it opens the door for more to be released into your life. Think about it when a child constantly complains, demanding more without appreciating what has already been given. The parent's heart is grieved. But when that child looks up with gratitude, saying, thank you, the parent's heart is moved to give even more. God is the same. He delights in a thankful spirit because thanksgiving is a declaration of trust. It says, Lord, even if I don't see everything yet, I believe you are good, you are faithful, and you are already working in my life. But praying with thanksgiving is not ignoring your problems. It is choosing to look beyond them and declaring that God is greater. You may be in lack, but your thanksgiving proclaims, "You are my provider." You may feel weak, but your gratitude says, "You are my strength." You may be walking through trials, but your thankful heart whispers, "You are with me." This kind of prayer creates an atmosphere of faith that allows blessings to flow freely. Thanksgiving is powerful because it changes you before it changes your circumstances. A grateful heart cannot stay in despair. Gratitude lifts your spirit, opens your eyes, and fills your soul with peace. It breaks the chains of negativity and allows you to see life through heaven's perspective. When you thank God in advance, you are making a bold statement. I trust you so much that I will rejoice before the answer comes. That is the language of faith. That is what moves mountains. In fact, thanksgiving is often the seed of miracles. When Jesus stood before the crowd with only 5 loaves and 2 fish, he did not complain about the lack. He gave thanks. And that thanksgiving brought multiplication. When you choose to thank God in the midst of your need, you are planting seeds of blessing that will multiply in your life. Complaining magnifies problems, but thanksgiving magnifies God. And when God is magnified, blessings are released. There is also great spiritual warfare in thanksgiving. The enemy thrives on fear, doubt, and complaints. But he cannot stand in the presence of gratitude. When you fill your prayers with thanksgiving, you silence the lies of the enemy. You declare with your own mouth that God is good, God is faithful, and God is working for your good. This weakens every attack of discouragement and strengthens your soul to stand firm in faith. A life of thanksgiving also attracts continual blessings. When you live with a grateful spirit, you are constantly reminding yourself and heaven that you trust in God's provision, and trust always opens the door for more. Gratitude keeps your heart soft, your spirit joyful, and your faith alive. It turns ordinary moments into opportunities for miracles and small blessings into rivers of abundance. So let your prayers overflow with thanksgiving. Do not wait until the breakthrough comes to be thankful. Be thankful now. Thank Him for what He has done, for what He is doing, and for what He is about to do. When you cultivate this attitude, you will see blessings pour into your life in ways you could never imagine. Gratitude is not just a response to blessing. It is the key that unlocks blessing. Prayer is not only about speaking words to God. It is about entering into a divine exchange. When you come before Him with an open heart, you are not leaving empty-handed. Something supernatural happens every time you truly pray. You hand over what is weighing you down, and God places into your life what only He can give. This is the beauty of prayer. It is a holy transaction where your burdens are traded for His peace, your fears for His courage, your weakness for His strength, and your emptiness for His abundance. Every human heart carries burdens. Some carry the weight of financial struggle. Others carry the heaviness of broken relationships, sickness, or unfulfilled dreams. Left on our own, these burdens crush us, steal our joy, and drain our energy. But prayer was never meant to be a ritual. It was designed to be the place where you unload these heavy weights onto the shoulders of the one strong enough to carry them. When you kneel in prayer and say, Lord, I cannot bear this anymore, I place it in your hands, something shifts. The heaviness lifts, not because the problem instantly disappears, but because you are no longer carrying it alone. This divine exchange is also the way God brings joy out of sorrow. Tears are part of life. Nobody escapes them. But in prayer, your tears are not wasted. They become seeds that God waters with His presence until joy springs forth again. Scripture tells us that He collects every tear in a bottle. This means not one cry of your heart is forgotten. When you bring those tears to Him, He gives you back joy that the world cannot steal. This joy is not dependent on circumstances. It flows from His Spirit within you. Another part of this exchange is the release of peace. Anxiety and fear often creep into our minds, whispering lies and magnifying problems. But prayer silences those voices. When you pour out your fears before God, He responds with a peace that surpasses all understanding. It is a peace that makes no sense to the natural mind. Even when the situation around you has not changed, something within you does. You walk away from prayer with calmness, assurance, and the quiet confidence that everything is in His hands. In your weakness, prayer brings strength. So often we feel incapable of facing what is ahead. The challenges seem bigger than our ability. But prayer connects us to a strength beyond our own. When you confess, Lord, I am weak, His Spirit rises within you and makes you strong. This is the same divine exchange that gave courage to the fearful, boldness to the timid, and endurance to the weary. God never designed you to face life on your own strength. Prayer is the place where you plug into His limitless power. And perhaps the most beautiful part of this exchange is abundance for emptiness. When you come to God feeling dry, empty, and without hope, He fills you with fresh vision, renewed passion, and divine provision. Prayer is where rivers of living water flow, filling every dry place in your soul. Your emptiness is not the end. It is the invitation for God to pour Himself into you. So never come to prayer thinking you are wasting time or speaking into the air. Every time you pray, a transaction is taking place. You are giving what you cannot handle, and in return, you are receiving what you could never earn. The more you surrender, the more He fills. This is why prayer is not a burden, but a privilege. It is the greatest exchange you will ever experience. The exchange of your brokenness for His wholeness, your lack for His sufficiency, your despair for His hope. Breakthrough in life does not come to those who pray once and give up. It comes to those who persist, who cry out with sincerity, and who refuse to let go until they encounter the touch of God. Prayer is not a casual conversation. It is a spiritual battle, a wrestling with heaven where determination and faith meet. When you pray with persistence, you declare that you will not be moved by delays, silence, or obstacles. You will press on until the answer comes. This kind of prayer carries extraordinary power because it reveals the depth of your trust in God. Too many people stop praying when they do not see immediate results. They ask once or twice, and when nothing changes, they surrender to discouragement. But true faith is revealed in perseverance. When you keep knocking, even when the door seems closed, you show heaven that your faith is not shallow. You are not praying out of convenience. You are praying out of conviction. Every moment you persist in prayer, you are building spiritual strength, and that strength draws the answer closer. Persistence in prayer does not mean repeating empty words. It means pressing deeper each time, praying with greater sincerity, and refusing to let go of God's promise. Think of Jacob, who wrestled with the angel through the night. He would not release his grip until he received a blessing. That is the spirit of persistence. It is saying, God, I will not stop until you move in my life. I will not give up until I see your hand at work. Such determination touches the heart of God and pulls heaven's resources into your situation. Delays are not denials. Sometimes God allows a season of waiting to strengthen your faith, to purify your motives, or to prepare the blessing so that it arrives in the right way and at the right time. If you stop praying too soon, you may miss what was about to be released. Persistence ensures that you remain aligned with heaven until the breakthrough is manifested. It is the key that keeps the door of expectation open until God steps through with the answer. There is also a spiritual battle that takes place when you pray persistently. The enemy seeks to discourage you, to convince you that nothing is happening. But every time you pray again, you are resisting the enemy's lies. You are declaring that you trust God's word above the voice of doubt. Persistent prayer weakens the grip of darkness and strengthens the movement of angels who are sent to deliver your answer. Persistence also shapes your heart. The longer you stay in prayer, the more your desires align with God's will. You may begin by asking for one thing, but through persistent prayer, God refines your request, molds your heart, and prepares you to receive something even greater than you imagined. In this way, persistence not only brings answers, it transforms you. You become stronger, more patient, more rooted in faith, and more aware of God's presence in every part of your life. Breakthroughs often come at the point where most people would give up. The darkest part of the night comes just before the dawn. The heaviest pressure comes just before the release. When you feel like quitting, that is often the very moment you are closest to your answer. If you press through in persistent prayer, you will see doors open that once seemed sealed shut. So do not grow weary. Keep crying out, keep seeking, keep knocking. Pray with sincerity, with determination, and with unshakable faith. Refuse to let go until God touches your situation. The breakthrough you are waiting for may not come overnight, but it will come. And when it does, you will look back and realize that persistence was the very key that unlocked it. Hardship is never permanent, no matter how heavy it feels in the moment. Every season in life has a beginning and an end. Just as winter eventually yields to spring and night gives way to morning, the difficulties you face are temporary. They are not your destiny. They are only a chapter in your story, not the conclusion. Prayer is the force that accelerates this transition, moving you from the season of suffering into the season of blessing. When you understand this, despair loses its grip because you know that what you are enduring now is preparing the ground for what is about to come. When hardship surrounds you, it is easy to believe it will last forever. Pain can deceive you into thinking that joy will never return, that doors will never open, that breakthrough will never arrive. But prayer reminds you of a greater truth, that God is always at work, even when you cannot see it. Prayer pulls your eyes away from the storm and fixes them on the promise. It whispers to your heart, this is not the end. This is a season, and seasons change. Just as a farmer does not panic in the middle of winter, knowing spring will soon come, you too can rest in assurance that your hardship is only temporary. Prayer gives you the patience to endure the winter and the hope to look forward to the spring. The tears you cry today will water the ground for tomorrow's harvest of joy. The struggles you endure will strengthen you for the blessings you are about to carry. Every hardship has an expiration date, and prayer is the reminder that God is moving you closer to it. Prayer also transforms how you experience the season of hardship. Without prayer, suffering can feel crushing and endless. But with prayer, even in the darkest moments, light begins to shine. Prayer gives meaning to the struggle, showing you that God is using it to refine your character, deepen your faith, and draw you closer to Him. Hardship without prayer feels like punishment. Hardship with prayer feels like preparation. You realize that the very pain you wish would leave is shaping you into someone who will be ready to steward greater blessings. Seasons of hardship are also the times when faith becomes most powerful. Anyone can rejoice in blessings But true faith is proven when you can lift your voice in prayer even while surrounded by difficulties. When you continue to pray in the valley, you are declaring that you trust God to lead you to the mountain. This faith pleases Him, and it invites His presence to carry you through. And as His presence comes, hardship loses its sting because you no longer walk through it alone. The enemy wants you to believe that your suffering is permanent, but prayer dismantles that lie. Prayer keeps your spirit alive with expectation. It shifts your focus from the weight of the problem to the certainty of God's promise. Each prayer you speak is like striking a hammer against a wall. At first, it may seem like nothing is happening, but with persistence, cracks begin to form, and suddenly the wall comes crashing down. The season of hardship collapses, and the season of blessing breaks forth. Never forget that seasons are appointed by God. He allows winters to come, but He also guarantees that spring will follow. He may permit hardship to refine you, but He also promises blessing to reward you. Your part is to remain faithful in prayer, to trust that no matter how cold or dark the season feels, dawn is on the horizon. And when that dawn comes, it will not be small. It will be overwhelming. Blessings will flow in such abundance that you will forget the pain of the season that has passed. So lift your heart in prayer, even in the middle of hardship. Declare that this season will not last forever. Hold on to the truth that your suffering is temporary, but your blessings will be eternal. Let prayer be the force that carries you through the valley and ushers you into the field of abundance. For your hardship is not the end. It is only the soil out of which your greatest blessings will grow.